You've probably had that moment. You're at home, blissfully lounging in your safe little bubble blanket burrito, candles lit, maybe a book in hand or a podcast humming softly in the background. And then, the doorbell rings.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
A little dramatic, but there's something sacred about solitude. Something so deeply rooted in your very being that the presence of another person in your space feels like someone cracked open your ribcage and walked straight into your soul with muddy shoes. And that's exactly what Alan Watts is here to unpack, the invisible boundary between you and the world, and why the spiritually awake, the ones who actually see through the noise, tend to flinch when someone invites themselves in, literally or metaphorically. It starts with this basic truth. Your home isn't just where you sleep. It's not just walls and furniture and whatever crumbs are on your couch. It's a physical projection of your inner world. Every corner of it is you, your memories, your fears, your aspirations, your vulnerability. When someone walks into your space, they're not just stepping on your rug. They're stepping into your psyche. And society doesn't get this. Society practically worships extroversion. The loudest person in the room is the most successful. The busiest person is the most productive. If you're not constantly networking, socializing, posting, responding, performing, you're falling behind. If you crave alone time, you must be depressed. You must be weird. You must need help. But Alan Watts flips that entire narrative on its head. According to him, being spiritually awake isn't about chanting mantras in the Himalayas or drinking mushroom tea in the desert. It's about knowing yourself. Truly, intimately, deeply. And to know yourself, you need silence. You need stillness. You need time alone. Not everyone understands that. Some people fuel up on social energy. They crave the buzz of conversation, the high of connection, the adrenaline of attention, and that's fine for them. But for others, for you, maybe the noise is draining. The performative small talk, the expectation to host, the pressure to be on. It's not just exhausting, it's disorienting. It yanks you out of your inner truth and tosses you into some weird role you never auditioned for. And you know what's worse? Feeling guilty for that. Feeling like there's something wrong with you because you prefer the quiet. Because you'd rather stare at the ceiling in contemplative peace than go out and have fun with a group of people you're not even sure you like. Society makes solitude seem like failure, like you've given up, like you're avoiding life. But Alan Watts would say the opposite is true. You're not avoiding life. You're listening to it. And for people who are spiritually attuned, who are actually tuned into their inner frequency, that silence isn't emptiness. It's everything. It's the only place where the truth gets loud enough to hear. Now, let's talk about visitors. To someone spiritually awake, a visitor isn't just a person. It's a presence. It's energy. It comes in and shifts the whole room, maybe not in a bad way, but definitely in a disruptive way. Suddenly, your house isn't your house anymore. It's a stage. You're not just sitting there in your robe, you're hosting. You're managing vibes. You're guarding your inner world like a bouncer at the velvet rope of your consciousness. Because let's be real, even the most well-meaning guests bring baggage, their moods, their unresolved issues, their energy signatures. And if you're someone who's in tune with all that, if you can feel the tension behind someone's smile or sense the chaos humming beneath polite conversation, it's overwhelming. It's not just tiring, it's violating. And what about those people who don't take the hint? The ones who treat your boundaries like suggestions. The ones who assume that just because you're home, you're available. They don't see your silence as sacred, they see it as emptiness to be filled. They don't realize that knocking on your door is like walking into a cathedral mid-prayer, waving around snacks and asking if you want to hang. The truth is, when you're doing inner work, when you're in the middle of real, raw self-discovery, interruptions don't just break focus. They break trust. The inner self, that vulnerable, half-formed version of you that only comes out when it feels safe, recoils. It hides. And every time it's forced back into the shadows, your growth stalls. You retreat. It's not fear. It's preservation. And Watts gets it. He understands the archetype of the hermit not as a lonely outcast, but as a necessary force in a world that's way too loud. The hermit isn't hiding from reality. The hermit is examining it, carefully, quietly, without distraction. That's why solitude isn't just about being alone, it's about being whole. It's about giving your mind space to unfold, to process, to breathe. And sometimes, the presence of others, even the well-meaning, pleasant, just popping in kind, pulls you out of that delicate process. There's this unspoken mythology around being constantly available. Like, the more accessible you are, the more valuable you are. But Alan Watts would argue the opposite. Your value isn't in how much you give away, it's in what you protect. And protecting your solitude. That's not selfish. That's wise. You live in a world that praises exposure. Share everything. Post everything. Be available 24/7. But the spiritually awake, they know the truth. Your soul wasn't built for constant company. It needs time to stretch, to shed, to evolve. And sometimes, the most important conversations you'll ever have are the ones you have in silence. Now let's zoom out. Think about how people treat the word loner. Think about how the media portrays introverts mysterious at best, suspicious at worst. But spiritual solitude is not some character flaw to be cured. It's a skill, a practice, a radical act of self-respect. You're not weird for needing space. You're not broken for craving quiet. You're not rude for saying no. You're awake. And yes, sometimes that means choosing to stay home instead of going to that dinner. Sometimes it means not answering that call. Sometimes it means letting the doorbell ring and doing absolutely nothing. Because maybe right now, you're in the middle of a breakthrough. Maybe you're finally hearing yourself after years of listening to everyone else. Maybe you're not lonely, you're just finally alone. And it's about time people stop pathologizing that. Alan Watts reminds us that inner resistance is a sign, not of weakness, but of wisdom. Your psyche knows what it needs. If it throws up a wall when someone tries to enter, there's probably a reason. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe they're not safe. Maybe the moment isn't right. Trust that. And here's the kicker. The more you respect your boundaries, the more authentic you actually can be when you do engage. Because you're not showing up drained, resentful, or half-present. You're there because you chose to be. Fully. That's real connection. Anything else? It's just noise. So next time someone tries to guilt you for protecting your space, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, just remember, your boundaries are not walls. They're gates. And you get to choose when, and for whom, they open. You're not being dramatic. You're being discerning. In a world that wants to rush, you pause. In a world that wants to perform, you reflect. In a world that wants to invade, you protect. That's not rejection. That's alignment. And maybe, just maybe, the people who don't get that were never meant to walk through your door in the first place. So if you've ever felt guilty for not wanting visitors, or worried that your craving for solitude makes you weird, let Alan Watts free you. You are exactly as you should be. The world needs loud voices, yes, but it also needs quiet souls. And your silence. That's your superpower. Let it speak. Now let's hear from you. Do you resonate with this? Are you team don't ring my doorbell? Unless you're the mailman. Or have you struggled to set those boundaries without guilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're feeling this vibe, subscribe for more deep dives into the beautiful, chaotic human experience. And remember, you're not closed off. You're tuned in. Alright, let's keep going because this conversation is far from over. We're digging even deeper into that sacred tension between solitude and social expectation, and trust me, it only gets juicier from here. So picture this. You're having one of those rare days when everything aligns. Your head is clear, your space is calm, and you're finally starting to feel like yourself. Not the version of you that shows up at work or replies to texts out of obligation. No, we're talking about the real you. The one who thrives in the quiet. The one who doesn't have to perform. The one who's just existing, peacefully, in your own little bubble of presence. And then someone hits you with the "Hey, I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by." Cue the internal scream. Because what they don't realize is that your vibe, your frequency, your energetic state just shattered like a plate on a tiled floor. Not because they're awful. Not because you hate them. But because you weren't ready to open that door, physically or spiritually. It's like someone barged into a meditation. Or crashed a dream. You weren't there. And now, suddenly, you're supposed to flip into social mode. Engage, smile, host, be normal. It's jarring. Like being yanked out of deep REM sleep by a marching band. Alan Watts would say this disruption isn't minor. It's actually a violation of the sacred space you've built around your consciousness. When you're alone, especially if you're someone on the spiritual path, your solitude becomes a kind of temple. You clean it, tend to it, protect it. And yeah, sometimes that means metaphorically deadbolting the door and pretending you're not home when someone knocks. And that's not shady. That's sacred maintenance. There's this really uncomfortable truth most people don't talk about. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people leave emotional fingerprints on your furniture. Some people track in chaos like mud on a carpet, and spiritually awake people, oh, they feel all of it. It's like your nervous system is a tuning fork. You walk into a room and pick up on tension that no one's even acknowledged yet. You sit next to someone and sense the storm brewing behind their calm exterior. And when people bring that energy into your space, uninvited, it lingers, long after they leave. That's why Watts says solitude is not just self-care, it's self-defense. And we're not just talking about people who physically come over. Let's talk digital. Let's talk texts, calls, the dreaded "hey, you free to chat" messages that float into your notifications like little landmines. They seem harmless, but if you're in the middle of deep inner work, if you're curled up with your thoughts, finally hearing the voice within after drowning it out for years, that ping is not just a text, it's a trespass. You feel guilty for not responding, but responding means breaking the flow. And suddenly, your stillness becomes something you have to explain. You find yourself typing out, "Sorry, was just taking some time for myself," as if that's an oddity, as if needing space makes you the strange one. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Society rewards overstimulation. The more accessible you are, the more socially acceptable you are. Meanwhile, people who protect their peace, they get labeled distant, cold, guarded. You say no to plans, and people assume you're mad. You turn down a FaceTime, and suddenly you're off. But maybe you're just tuned into a different frequency, one that doesn't require constant interaction to feel alive. Alan Watts breaks it down like this. Most people are terrified of being alone because, in the silence, they meet themselves. And that's a scary person to face when you've spent years avoiding them. But for the spiritually awake, that silence isn't haunting. It's home. And let's be honest, some people are scared of those who are comfortable with solitude. You know what I mean? You've probably been hit with the concerned friend voice. "Are you okay? Is everything all right? You've been quiet lately." "Yes, Karen. I'm fine. I'm thriving. I just don't need to narrate my every thought in a group chat." Because here's the kicker. Being spiritually awake often means needing less output. You're not trying to impress. You're not playing status games. You're not chasing validation through constant updates. You're inward. You're centered. And that unsettles people who rely on chaos to feel real. Let's pause here and give a quick, honorary shout out to all the well-meaning extroverts who cannot understand why someone would choose to be alone on a Friday night. We love you. We respect your journey. But no, we don't want to just come hang. No, we don't feel like doing something chill. No, we don't want to grab drinks just for an hour. Because for us, that hour costs more than time, it costs energy. And it's an energy we've been investing inward. Into healing. Into growing. Into being. Alan Watts had this beautiful way of describing solitude not as loneliness, but as communion. Communion with the self, the soul, the universe. The spiritually awake understand that when you're alone, you're not empty. You're full with thoughts, insights, presence, and mystery. And that's what people miss. They confuse presence with availability, but you can be fully present and still be unavailable. That's not a contradiction. That's a boundary. Let's talk boundaries, actually. Because here's where things get real. Setting them. Not easy. Especially if you were raised to be polite, to accommodate, to make people feel comfortable, even at the cost of your own peace. You were probably taught to answer the door, answer the phone, smile when you didn't want to, host when you were exhausted, say yes when your gut was screaming no. And now, as an adult trying to reclaim your space, you feel bad for doing what's natural to you. But Alan Watts reminds us, guilt is often just the echo of old programming. It's not your truth, it's a glitch in the system. It's what happens when authenticity rubs up against expectation. And every time you choose solitude over social obligation, you're rewriting that programming. That's brave. That's powerful. That's spiritual maturity. And maybe the most ironic part of all, the more time you spend in solitude, the better your relationships become. Not worse. Because when you're not drained, when you've had time to recharge, when you've been honest with yourself, your energy is clean. Your presence is real. You're not showing up from obligation, you're showing up from alignment. So the next time someone side-eyes your lifestyle, or acts confused when you say no to another unnecessary hangout, just remember this. You're not avoiding connection. You're curating it. You're not saying no to them, you're saying yes to yourself. And look, there's no need to swing into hermit extremes. Solitude doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean shutting out the world forever and becoming a ghost with a yoga mat. It just means being selective, intentional, discerning. Alan Watts would say that's the whole point of awakening, becoming conscious of how you engage with the world, and having the courage to do it differently. It's not about escaping reality. It's about redefining it. So if your soul is whispering, stay in tonight, or let that call go to voicemail, or don't answer that knock, listen. That whisper is wiser than the loud demands of society. It's your sacred compass. It knows what you need. Trust it. And the next time someone guilt trips you for not being more available, just smile gently and say, I'm not unavailable. I'm just with someone really important right now myself. Because being spiritually awake doesn't mean floating above the world. It means being deeply rooted in your truth. And sometimes, that truth is quiet. Sometimes, it's slow. Sometimes, it just wants to sit in a room alone with a candle and breathe. And in a world constantly telling you to do more, be more, show up more, choosing stillness. That's the real rebellion. So here's your reminder. You don't owe anyone your presence. You don't have to open the door. You don't have to explain. Your sacred space, your home, your soul, your solitude is not public property. It's a sanctuary. Protect it like your peace depends on it. Because it does. Now tell me, what's your relationship with solitude? Have you had to fight to protect your space? Drop your stories in the comments. And if you're vibing with this kind of soul-centered chaos analysis, you know what to do. Subscribe, stick around, and join the quietly thriving club. And until next time, lock the door, light the candle, and don't feel bad for not answering. Your silence is speaking volumes. Let it echo. And look, if no one's told you this before, let me be the one to say it. You're not weird for needing time alone. You're not broken for feeling overwhelmed when someone tries to penetrate your peace bubble with small talk and just 5 minutes. You're not antisocial just because you don't want someone rearranging the energy of your living room with their presence. You are allowed, entitled, even to protect your frequency like it's fine crystal. Because it is. You've worked hard to create a life that feels calm, authentic, intentional. And when people show up uninvited, literally or emotionally, it's like they're trying to remix a song you were finally starting to dance to. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.